Hi, this is Scott with eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at and installing the Blue Ox base plate on our 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. Your base plate is going to be one of 5 main components that you're going to need to get started in flat towing. You're going to need your base plate, you're going to need your tow bar, you're going to need tow bar wiring, you're going to need safety cables, and some form of a braking system. And one of the things to keep in mind when you're setting up your Jeep to flat tow is whether or not you have ParkSense on yours or not. Ours is the Summit Edition, so ours ended up having the ParkSense on it. So we ended up having to go with smart diodes on these instead of your regular 4 diodes. So keep that in mind when you're picking out all your flat tow components. Another thing we recommend on these is going to be a charge line kit. And what that's going to do for you is when you're going down the road, it's going to give a little bit of a trickle charge from the RV to the battery of your Jeep. And it will help you make sure that you have a charged battery once you get to your location. One of the things I like about this base plate on our Jeep today is how it blends in to the front grille of our Jeep. It doesn't really stand out or stick out really far. The only thing that really sticks out is just your safety chain loops here. Everything else just kind of blends in. And one of the things is you're not going to always be flat towing, so it's really nice that its system kind of hides away and you don't see it all the time. The way it works out with this one too, I liked, is the way that we have access to a place to put our plugs. A lot of times when we do installations, we have to try and figure out how or where to mount this. So this is really nice that it incorporates this right in here into the base plate itself. And another thing I like about this is it also gives us a location for a place to put our breakaway switch, which also comes on our bracket that mounts on the front. So that's a really nice touch with this one. So one of the things about this one is when you're getting ready to flat tow, all you have to do is just take your arm, just put that in there, and just give it a quarter turn and it's going to click in place for you. And then you're all set to go to hook up your tow bar and just pop it off. All you have to do, give it another quarter turn, pull it off, and you can put it up away until you're ready to flat tow again. Another thing I like about this base plate is how easy it is to get everything hooked up. As you can see, we've got our cord plugged in and we have our safety cable on this side. And to get everything else done, all we have to do is lift this up, get our pin in place. And one of the things you'll notice here today is we don't have a braking system on this one. Our neighbor didn't want to get that set up for that yet, and we don't recommend doing any flat towing without a brake system. So just keep that in mind, that if you don't see a breakaway switch on here, the reason is our neighbor didn't want to have one put on yet. Other than that, it's really simple. We've got our tow bar hooked up, and all we have to do now is just run our cable up and under. And it's super easy to get at our cable loops as well. And that's all there is to it, and we're all set up. Another thing to consider and is often forgot about is when you need to get your tow bar on and leveled out is going to be a high-low adapter. And how we figure that out is after we get our base plate on and in place, what we want to do is take a measurement of the center of where our base plate hole is for where we make our attachment point, and we'll measure that to the ground, and then we'll also get a measurement of the center of our pinhole of our receiver to the ground as well. Now on ours today, we did have to have an adapter set up just to get it leveled out, and this is probably about as level as you're going to get when you get these set up. But it's real important that you do check that because you want to keep within 3 inches of each other in the measurement to make sure you keep everything level and safe while you're going down the road. At the end of the day, I really like the way this one turned out. It looks really good and it hides well on our Jeep Cherokee L. If you have any questions or comments about this setup for your Jeep Cherokee, feel free to leave us a question or comment down below in the comment section, or you can get a hold of one of our experts here at eTrailer. They'd be glad to help you out. Now, as far as installation goes, it can be a little bit tricky, and you will have to pull off the front fascia, and you'll have to have some specialty tools, and it does take quite a bit of time. Now, if it's something you don't have time to do yourself, you just don't have the space or the place to get it done, you can always take a look at our dealer locator and get something done for you locally. If it's something you feel like tackling yourself, stick around, watch our video, and we'll help you get it installed. To start our installation, we're going to need to get our radiator cover out of the way. And this is pretty simple. This is going to be 10 little plastic pop clips in the top here. There's a couple different ways you can do these. Just need to get under it with a screwdriver. You kind of work them up that way. Or if they give you a little trouble, you can always use a trim tool. And get under it with a screwdriver and get the center to pop out. And if you have issues with it, you can get under it with a trim tool and just pop those out. We're going to get all of these out, and then we can get this moved out of the way. And once you have all your clips out, we can just lift off our cover. Along the front of our fascia, we're going to have 6 T40 screws. We just need to get those removed. Now on each side, we're going to have this silver colored 10 millimeter. We're going to get both of those out as well. On each side of our vehicle, we're going to have the inner fender well here in the front, and we're going to have 5 screws in here we're going to need to remove, and these are going to be 8 millimeter. We're just going to come in and get all those removed. With the screws all removed, now we'll just pull back our inner fender well. That'll give us access to underneath here. Now we need to pull our trim back that goes around the fascia, and what we're going to do is just kind of start at the bottom, just kind of start working our way up, and pop that back. Now to keep this pulled back, we did just stuff a little piece of paper towel back in here that we had rolled up. That's going to help keep it away from our fascia. But now we pulled back our liner, and in here we're going to have 10 millimeter, and it's kind of like right in the seam of the front fascia and the fender. There's a 10 millimeter bolt right there. We just need to get that removed. On each side, we're going to have this large plug, and this connects from inside of our Jeep up to our fascia. We're going to need to remove this. So while we're in here, we're just going to pull this little plastic clip back, push down on that clip, and then we can separate our connection. On our passenger side, you're going to have an extra plug, and you're just going to unplug that as well, and all you're going to do is just push down on the little clip of that and just separate that and get that set aside. But you're going to have the same large plug over here, but you're also going to have our washer fluid line. Now I do have a pair of vice grips handy, and I just want to clamp that closed so we don't leak washer fluid all over. We'll just get a pair of vice grips on that, and we'll clamp that down. Now we have our little connection here, and all we have to do is squeeze this together, pull that apart. Now we can set our vice grips aside with our line. Now we're underneath of our Jeep, and we're going to have some screws here in the underbelly we're going to need to remove. We're going to have one little 8 millimeter hidden back in here on each side. And then we'll move across our front, and those are also 8 millimeter. Now your Jeep may be a little bit different. This one looks like it's had a little bit of work done on it. So keep that in mind. We'll just keep working across the front and get all these screws removed. Now underneath, we're going to have 2 more 10 millimeters. We're going to get those removed. Now I'm going to go ahead and get these 3 back here as well, just to give me a little bit more room to work. Now after we have our plate down, on ours we don't have them, but you may have a 10mm screw here and a couple plastic clips. But on ours we don't have that, so we'll move on to our next step. With an extra set of hands, we just want to start over here and just kind of start pulling back on our fascia. We want to separate it. A little bit of pressure. They can fight you a little bit. Once we get it started, just keep pulling back. Once we get it starting to come off, we want to remember we need to get this up and over our bump stop. Now we can just lift our fascia out of the way, make sure we don't have any wiring still connected. Now we can set our fascia off to the side. We have our fascia out of the way, and now we're getting up to where our bumper beam is. You're going to see this little plastic piece here. I'm just going to use my clip tool, get behind that, and it's going to be kind of the Christmas tree style that just kind of holds in there with pressure. We'll get that removed, and we're going to have another one back in behind here. Now we'll go ahead and remove that one as well. Now we just flip that up and out of the way, and we'll do the same on our other side. Now we're on our bumper beam now, and we're going to have a 10mm nut on this side and one on the other side. We'll go ahead and get those removed. With those off, we're going to have 2 16mm bolts on each side. With the bolts out of the way, we could remove our bumper beam. This little plastic piece we have hanging down on both sides, we're not going to need that, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. It's going to have another clip up on the top. We're just going to go ahead and get those out of the way. On each side of our vehicle, we're going to have an area we're going to need to cut out in order to make room for our base plate. And you can use a reciprocating saw or a cut-off wheel, or you could even try and use your Dremel to get this cut, but we're going to need to do it on both sides. So I'm going to start out with a cut-off wheel that I have, and I'm just going to start working out where I'm going to cut this area out on our vehicle. I'm going to come through with a little bit of paint and just clean up my edges on both sides. So in the front, we're going to have to drill an 1¼ inch hole 3 inches down from the center of our upper hole. So we measured down and we marked a spot and we want it lined up with it. We're going to do that on both sides, but on my passenger side of our vehicle, it already has a hole there, so I'm only going to need to drill the one. Now that didn't drill out too bad. I believe that's aluminum, so that actually cut out pretty well. To make room for our base plate, we're going to have this plastic panel down here. Just want to mark this out and cut some of this out. That way we have room to slide our base plate back in. So I'm just going to use my multi-tool and go ahead and get this cut out. Now went ahead and painted the hole that we drilled out, and that's going to help it from rusting or having any corrosion in the future. Now we're just going to lift our base plate into place and want to line up our holes. And we're going to line up this 10 millimeter bolt that sticks out. And I'm just going to start on my 10 millimeter nut, and that's going to help hold everything in place. What we want to do now is just get our upper hole lined up, and from this point on we're going to be using red Loctite on all of our hardware that we're going to be using. So we're going to take one of our factory bolts with red Loctite on it, and we're going to go ahead and get that threaded into our top hole, and just run that down finger tight. And we'll do that on both sides. In our kit we're going to have a long bolt, and we're going to have a lock washer to it and a flat washer. Just want to get those put together, and anything we do on this side from this point forward we'll be doing on the other side, so keep that in mind. Now for the bottom hole we're going to go ahead and get this one put in. We're just going to get that started, and it can be a little bit tricky. You can use a socket on this to kind of help line it up and turn it with your fingers because it is inset back into this hole. Main goal is just get a few threads started, and then we can come back with our socket and get that snug down. One of the things I like to do at this point is just kind of make sure everything looks good and is centered up where I want it. Now I'll just come back through and snug down all of my hardware. After we have all of our hardware snugged down on the front, we'll come back through and we'll torque down our hardware to the specifications listed in our instruction manual. With those torqued down, now we can come to the side of our base plate, and we're going to have 4 holes. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to use these holes as a template. So what I'm going to do is eventually these are going to be drilled out to a 1/2 inch, but I'm going to start out with a smaller bit and just kind of start getting a hole started on these, and it'll almost help me center everything up when I go drilling the larger holes. With our pilot's holes all drilled out, what we'll do is come back through with our 1/2 inch drill bit and get our holes drilled out the rest of the way. With our holes all drilled, now we can get our hardware in place. In your kit, we're going to have these handle nuts or whiz nuts, and what we're going to do with these is we're going to run these in through the hole that we had drilled out and made an access hole, and we're going to run them down to the corresponding hole, and we're going to get our hardware in place. So when you're doing these, just take your time. They can be a little tricky. You're going to want to get it bent just right. You'll have to put it down in there and kind of look through the hole over here and see where it's angled, and maybe take it back out and just get it rebent how it's going to sit flat for you on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with our bottom front, and I do recommend doing the bottom ones first, just get that out of the way. That way you don't have the wires from the top ones in the way when you're trying to get these. These will be your harder ones. Now we just want to bring our handle nut down and line it up with the hole. And when we do that, you're going to definitely need a flashlight or some kind of light so you can see in there. And get your handle nut to line up. Try and hold it in place. And then take your hardware. Already have your Loctite and your washer on. This may take a few tries. That one I managed to get. Now we're just going to run this one down finger tight. We'll leave that right there. Now we can just bend our wire out of the way. Just be careful not to break that off. Now I'll go ahead and I'll get my other back one done as well. We have these three in and we left this one out up top in the front. And what we have is we're going to have our spacer, and it's going to have your slotted end down here, and we're going to have our hole that's going to line up with this. And it is going to have a little place where you can hold it. What we want to do is just drop that down in, holding on to it, and we want to line it up with our lower bolt down here. Now once we've done that, we can tell that we've got it lined up, and our spacer will stay put. So now we'll take our handle nut, and we're going to do just like we did with our other ones. Just get that lined up, run our bolt in through our hole in our base plate and our spacer. Now we just want to make sure that we have everything in place. After we have all of our hardware in and we're sure of our spacer being hooked up where it needs to be, we'll come back through and get everything snugged down. Now I recommend using hand tools to get these tightened down at this point. You don't want to break off your handle nuts. You don't want the weld to come loose. So what I'll do is I'll just come through and just start getting everything tightened down. I like going crisscross, and I'll go back and forth and just kind of get everything drawn down. After we have everything snugged down, we'll come back through and torque down all of our hardware to the specifications listed in our instruction manual. Now, if you don't have a torque wrench, you can always pick one up here at eTrailer. We do have some options available for these. If you don't, you can always take a look at your local auto parts store. You should be able to rent one there. So what I'm going to try and do on these to get these out of the way, I'm going to try a pair of snips, just kind of bend them back and forth, and those will pop off for you. That works as well. For our next step, we need to get our safety cables on, and what I had to do is go around our frame. You can see this part that comes up. We want to get around that and then back on the inside of that down to this hole, and then we're going to have our cable. It's going to kind of go down over to here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my D-ring that goes in through my cable, in through my mount. I'm going to rotate that through. Now I can take my other end, get that looped in through that. Now I can tighten this down, get that run down. Now I'll take a wrench, which is 11/16, get that snugged up. Now what we can do is we can just tuck our cable up in, or you can also use a wire tie or something like that, and just get it to where it's just going to be held up in place and not get over into our fender well. At this point, we can actually get our fascia held up and marked, but what we're going to do is I have a few more components I need to get installed on here for flat toe setup, so I'm going to get those installed and then we'll come back through, get our fascia all trimmed up and reinstalled. What we're going to do now is we're going to get our fascia put in place where it's going to go, and then we can mark it out and figure out where we need to make our cuts. So we have our fascia somewhat in place, and the first thing I did is cut around where our safety cable loops come out, and that allowed me to bring it back a little bit. And what that's going to do is allow me to get a little bit closer so I can see where I need to cut around these to make room for my tow bars to come through. So all I'm going to do is use my multi-tool cutter, and I'm just going to cut around the best I can around the edges of this. Now keep in mind when you're doing this to yours, it's really hard to get this honeycomb to come out right. You'll try and cut a small piece just to make it look good, and it ends up having to cut more out just to get it to fit. So keep that in mind. Just do the best you can and make it look as good as you can. Other than that, now I'm going to start trimming this back and get everything to fit. So we got everything cut back and it doesn't look too bad. All we did is just kind of basically traced around them, give it a little room when we were cutting these out, so it gives it room. And it was pretty cool because as we're doing that and we got all of our sections cut out, our fascia basically fell back into place where it needs to be. So now I'm at that point. I'll come back through and I'll get all my electrical connections hooked up, my washer fluid line, and then we'll get all of our bolts in, and that'll get us all set up for flat towing. With everything put back together and looking great, that'll do it for our look at and our installation of our Blue Ox base plate on our 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. I'm Scott with eTrailer, and thanks for watching.